All right, all right, all right. Happy Tuesday to you folks. No music for the intro today. I just wasn't feeling it. Again, is there a rule? Is there a rule that I have to start every episode with music? I don't think so. Maybe once in a while it's not the worst thing in the world to not have a copyright strike on every single daily episode. My name is Jimmy Selesky, your host of Live from the Studio, the Daily Edition. Some good news in the bank right off the bat. First and foremost, folks, it is Tuesday. That's right, Twitter Tuesday. We've kind of been inventing this show as it goes. And all I really do know for sure is that Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are something, but Tuesday is Twitter Tuesday. And today on this very special edition of Twitter Tuesday, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, being as how we've only ever done one official episode of Twitter Tuesday. So it's not like we have a long-standing tradition here. I'm just doing it slightly different than I did the other time we did this. Whoa. It's still relevant to Twitter. In fact, it's incredibly relevant to Twitter. In fact, it might be the most relevant to Twitter that one could be. Because today, I want to sit down and take a look at the hot off the press new interview from the Don Lemon Show featuring Elon Musk. This interview dropped. Do you say interviews dropped? I feel like drop is like, like a hip hop album or something. Oh, this interview premiered, according to YouTube. It premiered yesterday. Actually, wait, what's today? Tuesday. Yeah, yesterday, March 18th. So this is hot off the presses, just in time for Twitter Tuesday. And I want to go through, I've already done the due diligence of watching the entirety of this episode, which I recommend you do the same. This is episode 1 of Don Lemon's new show after being relieved of his duties at CNN. Now, I do not say that in jest or facetiously or in a mocking tone. I'm just, laying down some context. And his first episode is with the founder of X, not the founder, the current owner. We taking over, Mr. Elon Musk. The first thing you'll notice before we get to any of the clips that I've hand selected, artisanally selected for your viewing pleasure, it's hard to ignore the rather, I want to say, animus. Is that a word? Animus? Like enemy-is? I don't know. I know animus is a word, but that's not really what I'm trying to say. There is a tone of non-friendliness coming from the one Don Lemon, paired with a ever so tasteful amount of smugness, which I just love. And it's kind of, as we go through the interview, you'll be able to pick out moments where it just, for me, I kind of had a hard time understanding why he took on this tone. I mean, you're starting episode 1 of your series, and you want, obviously, your first guest to be an extremely high-profile, highly relevant person to bring viewership to your new series. And they do that, and then you proceed to kind of treat them like shit. Give me 1 second, I'm going to turn this heater off. And I don't know. I don't expect Don to be soft or, sycophantic, which is a good word. The word of the day! Sycophantic. But I don't know. It just seems kind of like slimy to know full well that you are completely trying to take advantage of this person's popularity, this person's viewership base, this person's place in the national conversation, and leech off of that to bring viewers to your most likely what will be an incredibly irrelevant show. And that's coming from a guy with maybe the most incredibly irrelevant show on the internet, me. So I can say that. I'm punching up. Okay? I don't know. Why not at least be a little bit not a dick? And the problem with this tone, as I promise we will get into the clips, is that he's pretending not to be in attack mode. And I don't like that. I don't like the kind of wolf in sheep's clothing thing that a lot of these people do, where they pretend that they're best buddies and everything's groovy and great and oh my God, I'm just so and blah 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 blah. But meanwhile, the whole time they're trying to get you. And he even says in the interview, "I'm not trying to get." Yeah, you are, dude. You want to be the guy that gets Elon Musk to slip up or say something so then you can then use that to build up your own clout. And it's like, okay, if you want to put on roast Elon Musk over the coals interview, bombshell interview, I'm going to fucking get to the bottom of this, Elon. Just do that then, dude. Just say, hey, I disagree with everything you say. And if you want to stand up to me and debate me, let's do it. But this kind of meek, beta, slimy little, hey man, what's up? So glad you did the interview. I'm not trying to upset you, but don't you feel like you're pretty much the leader of a white supremacist movement? What? That's slimy. Okay, well, let's get into it here. There's an intro that he does. I'm not going to waste everybody's time playing that. It's an intro. Okay, you've seen an intro before. You just saw me do an intro. It's about the same thing, except it was him instead of me. Okay, so you've got that picture in your mind. The first real relevant thing I guess I want to talk about in regards to this interview is this little back and forth right here. It's only 3.5 minutes into the interview, and it pretty much sets the tone for who Don Lemon is as a person. We'll get to see who Elon Musk is as a person. But here, right off the bat, you're going to get a first-person front row seat to inside Don Lemon. So let's pop it on.
You reached out over the summer and you said, it would be great to have Maddo, Don Lemon, others on the left put on this platform. You received full support. The digital town square is for all. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean that we want to make sure that there are a wide variety of viewpoints. That it's, we always have, for example, Tucker Carlson, who most people will view as being on the right. That's quite a prominent name on the right. We want to have prominent names on the left as well to provide different points of view, as well as centrists. Just basically a wide range of viewpoints on the platform, so users can hear different opinions. They can hear, what's your point of view, what's Tucker's point of view, and people can make their own decision about what they believe.
You didn't mean that I'm on the left? Did you think that?
I thought you were on the left, but yeah. I don't know. Well, let's just say, I don't know what the left is or the right is, frankly, these days, because things can be quite polarized. But my impression was that you're more likely to be described as on the left than the right. My sense is you're sort of center left. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, did you ever watch me on CNN, or did you watch?
I saw I saw segments.
Yeah.
But CNN is generally considered left.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Why do I say CNN is generally considered left? I think if you look at any sort of media survey of what is on the left or right, I think they would say, like, for example, Fox is on the right, and CNN is on the left.
Yeah. So that's what.
Am I missing something here?
Okay. Are you missing something? I don't know. I think that when I read that, I said, like many of my critics or detractors, they never really watched me on CNN. They just saw the clips of me either on social media or maybe on Fox News or in conservative media, where it's sort of where I've become a character or a caricature of what I actually am, and it's taken out of context.
Sure. Well, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as someone who is, I am independent in my thinking, and I vote for people based on the issues and how I feel about it, not necessarily because of political leaning of some sort.
Okay. So that's your first clip. Right off the bat. I played that not because it's anything pertinent to Elon Musk or any of the conversations they have. But it, again, is such an immediate window into what is about to happen here. This is what pisses me off about people like Don Lemon. He is clearly on the left, and there's nothing wrong with being on the left. It's okay to be on the left. You know? How many times, for those of you who actually watch or have watched this show or whatever, you can pretty much tell about 15 minutes into any particular episode that I clearly lean toward the right. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. I've also said several times, I lean on I'm saying it right now. I admit that I have a lenience, a bias, a predisposition. Now, I like to consider myself open-minded enough to, change my views or my opinions on any particular issue with new evidence, even if it contradicts my internal biases. But it would be dishonest for me to engage in any type of conversation, a so-called neutral, friendly conversation, by introducing, hey, I'm Jimmy. No, to be honest, I don't agree with the right or the left. I'm completely central. I have no bias. Look, hey man, I'm on your side, okay? We're just going to tackle this. Bullshit, Don. You are clearly on the left. CNN is clearly on the left. I mean, you look, CNN's on and this tone, this gaslighting tone, like what you just said, what Elon just said was the most ridiculous thought. So you're saying I'm on the left? Well, CNN, however you do Elon's voice, CNN is, you're saying CNN's on the left? Why do you say that? Like he can't even believe. He can't even believe that someone would possibly think not only he is on the left, but that the news network CNN might have a slight leftward bias. I don't think anybody would have a problem saying that Fox News has a conservative bias, obviously. But the thing that quite possibly makes CNN the most dishonest is that they pretend to be neutral. So when you watch CNN, you are not told that you're getting a left-leaning Democrat skewed perspective on the goings-on in the world today. No, you are being made to think that this is a moderate perspective. And that anything more right of us is just far-right extremism. Because we're the center. So, if we're the center, then Trump must be, way out in right field. When in reality, no, you're way out in left field, and a lot of the people that you consider far-right extremists are actually just centrists like Elon Musk. That's the crazy gaslighting that's going on here. And I'm not even going to blame Don personally for this, because a lot of this is self-gaslighting and internal echo chamber bubble gaslighting. These people exist in such a closed-off bubble to the rest of the world that they literally do think that they are in the middle, because they only surround themselves with other people that are this far to the left. So as far as they're concerned, they're right in the middle compared to everyone else they know. And you'll see this all the time in your daily life. Pay attention. You'll notice that if you are a person who leans right or a person who doesn't mind Donald Trump or even likes Donald Trump, there's kind of like a slow, like, escalation when you meet somebody new to kind of like suss them out and make sure that they're on the same page before you drop that, like, you fuck with Trump. You don't just go. I mean, it depends on where you are. In my daily life, I'm a guy in my early 30s. I play music for a living. I work a lot in bars. It's kind of a lot of that is downtown and in Baltimore County, which is a more liberal area. I always am treading lightly before I get into any political conversation, because I always assume that everyone I'm talking to would completely disagree with me if I ever divulge my political opinions to them. And that is liberal privilege, really. I call it liberal privilege. That a lot of the people on the left will just walk around and they literally assume that everyone they talk to that's a normal person is a liberal. I have very close friends of mine that don't know my political leanings. Well, my very, very close friends know that I lean right, but people that I would consider in like my secondary valence electron circle, like my secondary circle, still inner circle, but not like, not going to be in my best man at my wedding type circle. They don't really necessarily know one way or the other, but they have talked end on end about how Trump supporters all suck and, the conservatives are all racist pieces of shit. And I just sit there and I just nod along, because it's not important to me to get into a big political debate with somebody. Our relationship doesn't necessitate that, but they don't think about it one way or the other. It is completely just, they are so locked into their own bubble that they really do think that, like, a Trump supporter is like some mythical beast that exists somewhere over there that, like, they've maybe seen one or two in their whole life, but like any normal cool guy that they know in their day-to-day, that's like when a normal cop, there's no way they support. They have no idea. So they literally may very well actually believe that they are moderate. At least I have this self-awareness to say I consider myself a center right-leaning person. And I do think that's fair. I'm not a far right guy. I have, mixed views on, abortion, legalization of drugs, things like that. I don't just line up with every single tenet of the so-called right. But at least I'm honest enough to admit my biases, unlike Mr. Don Lemon. So let's move on to the next clip here. Now, this clip, let's see, what is this one? Well, before we get into the actual meat and potatoes here, because that was just the side salad, that was the appetizer. Quick little, side away. They talked a little bit about the Tesla Roadster, and it sounds, Don Lemon kind of asked in like a kidding way, when Elon was kind of being like a little, a little gray, a little vague on what the new like Tesla car is going to be like, the Tesla Roadster or whatever. And he just in jest was like, flying car. And Elon was like, maybe. Which gave me pause. Because we very well may be getting to the point where this is maybe something that could happen. Now, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a flying car. Would that require like a pilot license? That's a good question, I think. If they invented like hover cars, would that require like a whole new license, right? You can't just drive a regular car and then hop on a motorcycle. You need a whole separate motorcycle license. I cannot imagine that you can do a K turn in a Nissan Altima with a Class C license, and that now qualifies you to drive a hover car. You would imagine the driver test's a little bit different for that. But it maybe is possible that we're getting to that point. Potentially. I don't know. He said that the steering wheel wasn't even a steering wheel. It was kind of like a yoke, like you would use for maybe a rocket ship or something. I mean, this is like crazy, if true. Big if true, folks. Wow. And one more thing before we jump into the video. Don kind of pressed Elon on who he supports. He pressed him on whether or not he's donating to the Trump campaign, if he is loaning money to Trump to help pay his legal bills, all of which Elon said no. And he ultimately got to the point of asking whether or not Elon would endorse a candidate in the upcoming election, to which Elon said he doesn't plan on it, but it's not off the table, essentially. And Don asked if he has a leaning in one direction or the other, and Elon said no, which I think might be a little bit of cap on him. I think, but then he did uncap himself by saying, I lean away from Biden. So he's putting it out on the table that he's not going to endorse Biden. That's obvious. Everyone knows that he's not a Biden supporter. And then Don goes, well, I guess that means you're just endorsing Trump then, because they're the only two people running. You know, Nikki Haley dropped out. And I just wanted to kind of pause the video like in real life and then walk onto the set and be like, hey, dude, did you like, I get it that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are like the main two candidates, the Democrat and Republican nominees, but like we have got to break out of this thing in a country where we literally don't even consider third-party candidates as real candidates. Okay? Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I'm sorry, Bobby Kennedy. I'm cool now. I call him Bobby like all the cool people. He's running. It's not just Trump and Biden. Okay? RFK is running. He's in the race as an independent. He has a significant base of people that support him. He is relevant enough to be in the conversation. Do I think he's going to win? No. But, you know, the fact that when Elon Musk says, hey, I lean away from Biden, I'll tell you that much. And then Don takes that as, so I guess that means you support Trump. It's like, or I support RFK, who's like fucking huge on the Twitter sphere and YouTube culture and stuff like that. Like, I could definitely see Elon liking RFK. So I don't know. That aspect of the conversation is just frustrating to me. It's just taken as such a given that like no one else matters. And I think that's a problem with our country. One of the problems, I shall say. Moving into the actual thing here. This first segment I want to talk about is in regards to the Great Replacement Theory. Now, the Great Replacement Theory, of course, well, actually, I'll let Don himself explain it. So this is the beginning of that segment. Here you go.
Can we talk about the Great Replacement Theory now? Some of the things that you post, the Great Replacement Theory, you claim that Democrats, President Biden's immigration plan to open up the border, you said that the president is getting, and Democrats are doing it to get more votes. But undocumented immigrants cannot vote in federal elections, so how is that possible?
Right. Well, you're conflating two things. One is Great Replacement Theory. The other is, which I don't subscribe to that. I'm simply saying that there is an incentive here. If legal immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat. the more that come into the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is, in my view, a simple incentive to increase voters, Democrat voters. And yeah, so the question is like how? So there's a few ways that this works. One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats. So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens.
Let me just pause here real quick. If you just noticed the look on Don's face when Elon just said that, because before I play the rest of the clip, I just want to note that we discussed this very thing on Friday's show, this past Friday, where we discussed how just the sheer presence of immigrants, particularly illegal immigrants, in what wind up primarily being, the blue cities that make themselves sanctuary cities for these immigrants, that bolsters the population of those cities and states, meaning that given that those states are already left-leaning, Democrat-leaning cities and states, their voting power, their representation in the House of Representatives, which is divvied out based off population among 435 representatives overall, and of course, the Electoral College for the presidential election, which the amount of electors a state gets, is based off of precisely the amount of representatives they have plus their 2 senators. So states like California with however many representatives, I want to say like in the 50s, 54, whatever, something like that, that the vast majority of those are based off of their population. And if you were to consider the amount of people that are in that state being counted by the census, which does not distinguish between citizen or non-citizen, then essentially states that have large illegal populations are bolstering their population count in the census, which then bolsters the amount of representation they have in our government. And that's exactly what Elon's talking about. So let's let the clip finish here. And Don's never I don't think Don's ever heard that. I don't think he's ever considered that.
So the illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California and New York, and if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. This also applies to the Electoral College. So you say, like, well, this also applies to electing
He has
a
no
president,
idea.
because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the Electoral College is in place is to balance that, is so that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College at this point in our history gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the Electoral College does. It actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It protects people who are in smaller states and protects people who are in red states.
Well,
The red states, because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true, which is that if as is the case, a disproportionate number of legal immigrants go to blue states, they amplify the effect of a blue state vote. And the math, as I understand it, you can research this obviously very easily on there. It's pretty straightforward to research this. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
Yeah. In blue states, you're talking about, I don't believe that your information on that is right.
So again, he goes on to clarify what we're already talking about. Now, of course, the other answer to this question, the question being, how is there an incentive for the Democrats to bring massive amounts of illegal immigrants into the country as a voter base if illegal immigrants can't vote? And that's like the fucking Uno quadruple draw 4 card, supposedly, that's just going to shut down the argument. And now you have two answers. The first answer is kind of a long play, and it's not as much of a trump card as the second answer. But the first answer, the easy answer, is, yeah, but these people that come into the country illegally, when they have children, those children will be citizens, and those children will vote, and those children will vote Democrat pretty reliably. Pretty reliably. The Democrats understand that, okay? They totally understand that. I know, I can hear you now. I can hear you guys out there now. Well, there's no saying that they're definitely going to vote Democrat. They're gonna vote Democrat, okay? I'm not even going to get into why. It should be obvious. They're going to vote for the party that let their family in, okay? The Democrats believe this, and if they didn't believe that, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing, okay? They are stalking their voter base. They're losing the black vote. They've had the black vote for over 50 years, and the black population in this country does seem to be realizing that the Democrats don't actually give a shit about them. Trump has like record high support among black men, black people as a whole, for a Republican candidate. The Democrats are aware of all this, and they need a new voting base, and they are bringing that voting base in. That's the long play. The short play, which is an even better point in my opinion, is exactly, again, what we're discussing right now. And Don Lemon goes on to bring up a completely irrelevant, like, separate point about the Electoral College as a whole. And I love Elon's response to this, because it's kind of like a masterclass in debate. You can tell he's like an autistic genius, because his mind just works so logically. He's unable to be like swayed or confused or disoriented by this like barrage of random nonsensical like arguments that Don Lemon uses confusion on Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is unaffected because he's autistic. You can't confuse Elon Musk. You can't confuse the guy who invented our first flying car, hopefully. Okay? He sees right through that shit, and he says what? What does he say? He says, yeah, that can be true too. It doesn't disprove, or I'm paraphrasing, of course. That can be true too, but that doesn't change what I'm saying. And that's a great response, because a lot of times what happens is in a debate, and I've never trained professionally in the art of debate, as you can probably tell. But I would imagine that one of the techniques that they probably teach you, especially if you're losing in a debate, or if you feel like you're on a topic that you're not really strong about, is the art of debate is very simple. In order to win a debate, you don't have to make yourself right. You just have to make the other person wrong. And so what's happening here is Elon Musk says a completely true, mathematically sensible, verifiable fact that clearly paints out the incentive structure for Democrats, that clearly explains why Democrats are emphasizing sanctuary cities in these blue cities, in most likely blue states, that are taking in massive amounts of illegal immigrants, and then therefore magnifying that state's representation in Congress and the presidential election. Everything lines up perfectly. There's nothing you can do to poke a hole in that theory, because it's obviously true. So instead, Don Lemon just falls back on another like argument against the Electoral College as a whole, in that it does benefit smaller states proportionally compared to bigger states. And we could debate the Electoral College all day. I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to have maybe a show at some point where we discuss the pros and cons of that system for our presidential election. But that's not what we're talking about, Don. Two things can be true at once. And unless this conversation was about the Electoral College, then your true thing does not disprove my true thing. You asked me why I'm saying that Democrats have an incentive to bring illegal immigrants into this country as a voter base. And I have given you not one, but two verifiable, almost inarguable answers to that question. How about you explain to me what is wrong about those two things? How about you explain to me how, no, these people aren't going to have children who are obviously going to be citizens and vote Democrat. Maybe we can have the argument as to why we're just going to have a massive, every single child of an illegal immigrant and the Democrats are banking on them voting Republican. Yeah, I'm sure. That's what the thought is. Come on, get real. But at least that's related to the point. At least you can try to make that point and get easily shot down by common sense with no help from me. Or maybe explain to me how the math doesn't check out. Things like, if you were to actually assess the population based off of citizens as opposed to the entirety, excluding non-citizens, blue states would have 20 less representatives in the House. There's 435 representatives in the House. So 20 less would mean 20 less for the Democrats, and therefore, 20 more, theoretically, for the Republicans. That's a 40 representative swing out of 435. That's almost a 10% swing in the House alone. Not to mention whatever that amount would be in the Electoral College, which is slightly different, but pretty much the same thing, just with the two senators added. So what can we say about those two things, Don? Oh, nothing? Oh, we're just going to talk about this next part of the conversation, which is you. I mean, listen to this. This is just, you do realize that the whole great replace, that sounds an awful lot like the Jewish conspiracy that is pitched by neo-Nazis. And so all this mathematical stuff you just laid out, I don't know, sounds a lot like some anti-Semitism to me. What? I don't know. See if we can explain this one, Don.
So listen, let's talk more about the Great Replacement, because the first time that you posted on X about this Jewish conspiracy, you ended up apologizing.
I didn't call it a conspiracy. I just said that there's a simple matter of incentives. You don't need a conspiracy when you have basic incentives. In my view, there's a basic incentive that is fundamental that for the Democrat Party to foster and usher in a large number of illegals. Yeah. And you don't need a conspiracy in that case because you have a very basic incentive. You could say I'm wrong about that incentive, but that's my view. I'm not buying into some great replacement theory. I'm simply saying there appears to be a very clear incentive for Democrats to maximize the number of illegals because it helps them win elections.
I'm talking about the Great Replacement theory is also part of a Jewish conspiracy theory. And when you did the tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Right? So you said you learned your lesson. What did you learn?
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what.
No, I was already aware of these things, and the nature of my comment that really inflamed people. What I was trying to say, and I did very quickly clarify. This is what I'm saying: is that a number of prominent Jewish philanthropists fund groups that they should really take a closer look at funding, because some of the groups they fund, I think, are anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Do you understand the connection between the two? There's a connection between, you said Democrats, the Great Replacement theory, but when it comes to the actual Great Replacement theory, originally it was started about Jewish people, as you said, flooding in the country, and then now people are using it for Democrats, saying the same thing about Democrats.
Is that not amazing? Is that not amazing? I mean, that's his rebuttal. Now, we're going to see this time and time again. We talked about the smugness, the gaslighting that we're seeing coming from Don Lemon throughout the entirety of this interview. But what we're really now getting at is a whole new piece of the pie, a whole new seasoning thrown into the mix. And that is low IQ. How? I'll tell you what. I'll walk that back one step. Because either Don Lemon himself is not a particularly intelligent person, or he really thinks that you are not an intelligent person. And I don't know which one it is. So I don't want to come right out the gate and say, I don't think this guy's all that smart. I think he is effective at appearing smart. But as we'll see throughout the interview, his entire debate technique is basically obfuscation, putting words in people's mouths. And then here's the other classic thing that those kind of gotcha people do is they'll say something that you said. You'll say, I didn't say that. And they'll say, yeah, you did. Then you explain yourself. And then after you've gotten through explaining yourself entirely, they'll get the last word on the subject and go, this is what you said. Anyway, to the next topic. Then they'll move on. So they want that. They'll get that last word in. So they'll hear what you say, your explanation, your justification, your clarification, whatever you want to call it. And they won't acknowledge it. Don Lemon does not acknowledge at any point what Elon Musk is saying about the topic at hand. He listened to that whole thing with this face, like he's never even heard this, and that's the truth. I don't think he has. Because, look, here's the thing. Either you're not that smart or you're not a good person. I don't know which one I'd rather be. I think I would prefer if you were just not that smart. Because then I could go, oh, poor Don. He's never heard this argument before. And now he is for the first time and he doesn't know how to react to it. And so he's trying to move past it to another thing. But even worse than that is, no, you understand perfectly well what he's saying, and you are purposely ignoring it and trying to confuse the issue with something completely nonsensical, such as, before people accuse the Democrats of flooding the country with illegal immigrants as a voting base, they accuse the Jews of something very similar. So you basically see how this is a Jewish conspiracy, correct? All the sensible things you just said is actually just a Jewish conspiracy because there was a similar idea about the Jews. Whatever. That's all I have to say about that subject. Moving on to the next clip. This one has to do with content moderation. That is the heading of this particular clip. Content moderation. Let's see what they're saying here.
You believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and we have a responsibility to be transparent about when things are shown, why they're shown, That's why we open source our algorithm. I think once you start going beyond the law, now you're putting your thumb on the scale. And we don't want to put our thumb on the scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over. That's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down.
The study from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue found that anti-Semitic tweets doubled from June 22 to February 2023. One study reported that as many as 86% of the posts reported for hateful content remained up after being reported. Hate speech on the platform is up.
So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not was what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this, and
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. You look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets, and as of this morning, they're still on X. And from your own content policy, these posts should have been deleted. So why haven't they been deleted? Why are they still there? Did you?
We delete things if they are illegal.
But these have been up there for a while.
Are they illegal?
They're not illegal, but they're hateful, and they can lead to violence. As I just read to you, the shooters, in all of these mass shootings, attributed social media to radicalizing.
So Don, you love censorship, is what you're saying?
No, I don't love censorship.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
censorship. Moderation is a propaganda word for censorship.
But don't you think free speech is one thing, right? Or not,
Look, if something's illegal, we're going to take it down. If it's not illegal, then we're putting our thumb on the scale and we're being censors.
You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech? I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not...
It's illegal.
Some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying,
No, I literally... Don, I literally said, if something is legal... Okay, we will obviously remove it.
Okay.
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws are put in place by the people, we adhere to those laws.
Okay, I agree.
To the laws of others. If you go beyond the law, you're actually going beyond the will of the people.
Okay, agreed with the law. But if you are doing something that promotes hate and violence and ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it admittedly are saying...
There's articles all the time that lead to violence and killing. Don't they? Shouldn't they? Like you're applying a differential standard.
I'll stop it there because I think you get the point. I think another well done. I think I have a lot of respect for people that handle themselves well in these type of obviously confrontational situations. It's how like when you go to the court system, you're in a case. They have what's called discovery, and discovery is when the defense and the prosecution, I believe, have to present the evidence that they have to the other side and to the judge, so that there's no like surprises. And I feel like in movies they do this thing where it's like, I'd like to call, like you're about to lose the case, and then right before they lose the case, they're like, I'd like to call blah, blah, blah to the stand, and the whole court looks, oh my God, and they stand up, and it like that blows the case wide open because it's like this witness that nobody knew was going to testify. I don't know how that works. I could be wrong about this. It doesn't matter. This is something I'm okay with being wrong about because I'm just kind of making an example of why I respect people in these situations. My understanding is that in court, you have a motion for discovery where you can see the evidence from the other side. You can see what they're going to bring out against you so that you're not caught off guard and unable to defend yourself. Maybe not because it's indefensible, but just because you have not prepared a cogent argument against it. You weren't expecting to have to explain that particular thing. And that can be used as a kind of way to trip you up. And that's what you see in these interviews all the time. You see, they just kind of break out random shit like, well, how do you explain this? Blah, 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 blah. And the fact that people can, like, that are on the other side of that have the ability to kind of just like slip the punches. I have a lot of respect for that. I think it's harder than I think a lot of people give people credit for. As it pertains to this exact thing we're talking about, content moderation, I think it's pretty well said by Elon. I don't think there's actually anything for me to add to that. I think he says it best. And look, I'll admit, like when they show those things, it's like, ooh, does he have them? Wow, that Jewish cartoon certainly does have a big nose. That looks pretty bad. And then, and then they go, but then you immediately see the nexus of the argument has not changed. Elon goes, one, is it illegal? Is it illegal? No. Then we're not taking it off the platform. There are 500 million posts a day on this platform. We are not a curating source, outlet of media. We are a platform for people to say and do and express themselves how they feel and are free to do so, as long as that expression does not violate the laws of the land. The First Amendment rights in this country's Constitution. And look, we've all heard the arguments for and against free speech, so I'm not going to get in the weeds with all that at the moment. But there's just, the fact that he addresses it on such a cut and dry level like that, it's well said. It's like, well, look, dude, then we just disagree. Like, I don't support that post. But when you come out here and say things like, well, these posts lead to violence, that's a dangerous game you're playing there, ideologically speaking, because you could make the argument for pretty much anything that it could lead to violence. Anytime somebody says a true fact about maybe a crime statistic or some other type of thing that affects a certain group, one could definitely make the logical connection that this might cause somebody to have some hateful feelings about that group, which then may cause them to act violently. And so if you wanted to, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but instead 6 degrees of hate speech. You could take anything in the world and connect the dots to make it hateful. So what instead you have to do is set a hard line at, does this speech actively call for violence? And that is the line that we have pretty much agreed to, at least through, legal precedent. And I think that's a good line, And that's the line that Elon is applying to his platform. And now he's being challenged as to why he doesn't take further measures. And his answer is quite simple: because I don't support censorship. And when he accuses Don Lemon of doing exactly that, supporting censorship, he of course denies it, because Don Lemon is never going to come out and actually tell you what he really thinks. He's never going to actually admit and just be transparent and forthcoming about what he believes and his biases. No, he still has to purport this image of neutrality when that is so obviously not the case. And then, of course, you have the conversation about, hate speech has posts about hateful posts or whatever have gone up after you bought Twitter, which is like, first of all, I don't know how they measure that. What is considered hate posts? I don't know. I'm sure they have a metric for it. But regardless, Elon's response, pretty good. Well, no, not talking about the number of posts. Let's discuss the views. Because yes, people are posting what they're posting. I'm not controlling what people are posting. What our algorithm does is elevate certain things, and we are not elevating those posts We are not promoting that speech. That speech exists on our platform, but if you actually look at how many times these posts were viewed, that has gone down. And just a final point of note, that last segment, that last little portion where it goes, well, you wouldn't allow child pornography. Again, this is what's leading me more back to wondering, 'cause I know we're on the fence. Is he stupid or is he evil? And that child pornography argument, mind you guys, this is a person who has made millions and millions of dollars being a news pundit. He interviews people, he commentates and editorializes on politics for a living. He worked for CNN. He has a show now where he's interviewing Elon Musk. He is a well-known figure in the media world, for better or for worse. And his argument, his bombshell gotcha moment is, well, you wouldn't allow child pornography on there. To which Elon just says, again, that's illegal. I literally just got done telling you. And that doesn't, again, seem to register with Don. It doesn't matter because he's on to the next thing, as are we. Let's move on to the next thing. That's like I said, look, anybody who's watched Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and whatever, you've had your fair shake of the free speech argument. I think it's a little played out at this point. You either agree with it or you don't, I tend to agree with it. So, the next topic, is, D.E.I, or as I like to call it, and some funnier people than me like to call it, D.I.E, including Elon Musk, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this, of course, is the incentive in industry, corporations, things like that, to emphasize diversity, just that, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So basically, people don't like the word quota because quota actually lets the cat out of the bag. It says, yeah, we have a certain amount of this type of person that we need working here. We have a certain type. They don't like that. So they don't really use the word quota, you'll notice. But that's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to raise the amounts of certain underrepresented groups in certain industries. And so I'll play the clip here. This is in regards to that. Because in doing so, the conversation has been that it has lowered the standards of qualification, which then makes that particular field or industry more susceptible to incompetence. And that instead we should be hiring people based off merit as opposed to check boxes. Anyway.
Okay.
So listen, after the door blew off this mid-flight in this Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of D.I.E. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be D.E.I. Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay. But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies, though, on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence.
No,
that's people's
they
opinion.
will cite all the in the replies to this. You will see how often the information is cited, showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards are lowered.
And I do hope that happens. I hope that happens, and I look forward to it. And as you said, if you're wrong, then you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So and I'm glad we're having this conversation, debating. This is what we should be doing, debating the issue. So
right.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and then they'll be proven in the thing, and you as well. But I just want to tell you that pilot that you talked about, in fact, was a woman pilot, landed the plane safely, despite the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a faulty.
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure. I believe at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. In my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand how by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But do you don't?
That's it.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering their standards?
So two things right off the bat. First and foremost, great answer, Elon. Great response. I don't know why are they lowering the standards? Like, that's not a question that is on Elon to answer. All he's saying is that we shouldn't be lowering the standards in an effort to emphasize diversity, equity, and inclusion in any particular industry. That's all he's saying. It's not my job to explain to you why. It always just so happens to be the case that when you emphasize diversity, equity, inclusion in a particular field, the very next step is that you lower the bar in order to get more of those target groups in your field. It goes without saying, however, that any time that you have lowered the standards, if it doesn't mean, in the context of this example he uses, Don uses about the Boeing airplane, the door fell off mid-flight, and it was a female pilot who landed it. Okay, awesome. Did anyone in the room, except for you, Don, ever suggest that women and non-white people cannot be good pilots or just as good as any white pilot? Did anyone say that? And this is a perfect example of what we talked about time and time again. These arguments that you're hearing are so incredibly unsophisticated because he's never heard the opposing argument. He literally thinks that all these issues are this cut and dry. And that's why he has such a disdain for people like Elon Musk who disagree with him. Because when you see the world as cut and dry, when you see the issues as black and white as Don Lemon does, then when you disagree with him, it must be because you're a bad person, because this is not a difficult, complicated issue. This is very simple. I know all the ins and outs. And the ins and outs are, if you don't support diversity, equity, and inclusion, then you simply think that, only white men should be airline pilots. No, Don, I don't know if you've thought about this for more than half a second or ever talked to anyone who has thought about it for more than half a second. But all Elon's saying and all anyone's saying that pushes this point is anytime you emphasize anything over pure merit and pure qualifications, you have compromised the level of competency in your industry. If you want to be an airline and you say, look, we're going to take the top 100 scores on this test, the top 100 candidates, bing, bang, boom, and you look around and whatever color those people happen to be, whatever set of genitalia they have, whatever their identity is, whatever their background is, whatever language they speak, that's great. But at least you have ensured at that moment that the 100 people that you just hired are the top 100 people that were available to be hired. if even one of those people was overlooked instead for someone who wasn't in the top 100, then you have now added a less than qualified person to your industry. You have now reduced the competency of your industry. This is simple, logical shit. It does not require me believing that because I don't think that we should emphasize anything other than merit in things, especially in the medical field or airline pilots or anything that involves me putting my life in this person's hands and out of mine. This has never crossed these people's minds. Literally. And so it's almost crazy to watch how juvenile their arguments and rebuttals can be. And you have to wonder who is watching this is going like, good point, Don. Good point. Why does he have a problem with them lowering standards in certain industries? What, does he think that women can't be good pilots or black guys can't be good pilots? No, but apparently the people that are lowering the standards do. I mean, let's shine the light back on you. DEI proponents, why is it that you think that we need to lower the standards as part of the process of incorporating more women and minorities into certain fields? You have the floor. Well, because of lower up. Okay, whatever. But I'm just saying, for one reason or another, lowering of the standards seems to go hand in hand with raising the amount of certain target groups in certain industries. And it also seems to go hand in hand, that is, lowering of the standards with lowering of the performance. And that should go without saying. Again, does that mean that no woman in the world can be a good pilot? There's not a black guy in the universe that can fly a plane as good as a white guy? No, that's not what it means. Anyway, let's move on to the final clip. This is in regards to the quote unquote woke mind virus, as I guess Elon puts it. And Don wants to know why. Why do you call it that, Elon? So let's allow him to elaborate.
I did not.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you talk about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing. You have been deeply outspoken about the issue of trans rights. You posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns in bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean. It's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
Yeah, I think it's come to be. I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course, but trying to blame everything on trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm.
Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and yeah.
You think that's unfair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on. I think we should treat people like people.
You don't agree that this country was founded on racism and founded on slavery and in many ways inequities? That still continue on to this day?
I think every country at that time, and I think even today, was extremely racist. Every country. And obviously slavery was present in about half of this country. And was not present in the North. There was racism for sure, but I think we want to look to the future rather than the past. And instead of engaging in constant rehashing of the past, because in fact, if you look at history, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Yes. Well, not everyone was a slave.
No,
but,
everyone was a slave.
Okay, but
we are all descended from slaves.
yeah. Well,
All of us.
yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
right.
But what future do we want?
Is
this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual?
I agree with you with that. That's the ideal. But what the evidence shows is that that's not what's actually in practice.
I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages does my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came here as
very difficult
slaves.
for me to come here.
And there is a legacy of slavery that still continues on. There's a legacy of racism that still continues on in this country. That's undeniable.
Well, if we keep talking about it nonstop, it will never go away. If we keep making that the central thing, it will never go away.
Why do you believe that?
I think I'm just making a simple statement of fact. So I think we want to get away from making everything a race or a gender or whatever issue, and just treat people like individuals.
Do you have any desire to understand what many people of color and even trans people, how they feel about this country and how they're treated in this country? If they say and they believe that they are treated a certain way in this country, why don't you believe them?
You cannot have a situation where someone is a self-described victim, and they just get to be that because that's how they feel.
I think that does happen in some cases, but not all cases. And I think that not understanding the history of the country, I think, is a real shame. Look,
We should understand the history of the country and other countries.
I've had incredible opportunities as a person of color.
Right.
But I've also been
very well.
But I've also been discriminated against, and I know that I have. And I know that that's real. And for someone to say that that isn't happening, I should just move forward and not think about that and ignore the past, is insulting.
I'm not saying it.
I'm going to stop it there. I think we get the point there. Actually, my primary focus was towards the end there. I think the beginning segment of that thing where he just explains wokeness, I think it was well said. I think Elon makes valid points. It's particularly where Don takes the conversation into, do you even care to hear what trans people and people of color have to say? And it's this insinuation that I find to be very insulting. And we saw this earlier, actually, during the Jewish conspiracy segment, where he was like, you said that, after you went to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro, you said you learned your lesson. And Elon's like, I learned my lesson. Like, I was aware of, like this implication that Elon had never heard of the Holocaust or Auschwitz until after he tweeted something, and then he learned his lesson. And this implication that you're just completely unaware of what people are saying, you have no interest in knowing. And now we take it to this topic where, Don Lemon, a highly successful, far more successful than I think he probably should be, for one reason or another, still needs to include the fact that he has experienced adversity in his life. Guess what, Don? Everyone has experienced adversity in their life, and not always fairly, believe it or not, Don. And you might be surprised to hear this too, but the color of your skin is not the only determining factor in life as to whether or not you will be treated better or worse. I would even say, okay, fine, fuck it, I don't even care. Let's say being white in America is a privilege compared to being black in America. Fine. Okay. What else is a privilege? Being good looking is a privilege. Being tall is generally a privilege over being short. Being intelligent is a privilege over not being intelligent. You have far more advantages in life by being intelligent. Being born in a two-parent household versus a single family, having two stable parents, growing up in a nice neighborhood versus a bad neighborhood, going to a good school versus a bad school. These are all differences between people. There's 1,000,001 and counting different qualities that a person could exhibit, and skin color is one of those things. But it's this insinuation. That if I, as a person of color or a trans person, and I've seen this before, I've been in plenty of debates with people about this issue precisely. Because again, I don't pretend to not believe the things I believe. Unless, it's not worth bringing up. Where they simply state their perceived experience, because that's what it is. An experience is also perception, people. You can experience something a certain way and have it not necessarily have been the case. This happens all the time. But if you're a black man and you sit down and say, hey, man, I'm just telling you my experience is that this country is racist. And now I have to just go, okay, I just take your word for it. Your life is harder than mine. Mind you, yes, I've never walked a day in your shoes. You've also never walked a day in my shoes. Yet somehow your opinion, your perspective on the world around you is so much more valid than mine that when you grace me with your opinion and your perspective, I now have to drop anything I even thought or experienced myself and just accept your opinion as the correct opinion. No, thank you. No, thank you. You have no more insight into my life than I have into your life. So the idea that one of us is just inherently right for having experienced something, no. Again, no. I've talked about this all the time. I've had several experiences in my life, particularly even if you just want to narrow it down to my run-ins with the law. My run-ins with the police, where I have been treated so shittily. Now, I was never fucking, beaten up for no reason. I've also complied every time, so maybe that had something to do with it. Other than that, I've been patted down, had to take my pants down while they were searching for drugs just because me and my friends in high school were just chilling at the playground. We didn't do drugs because we weren't fucking cool. And the police couldn't believe that it was possible for 4 teenagers to be this uncool. That they're just sitting at a playground in a gazebo chatting and not smoking pot? You fucking nerd losers. So they patted me down. Didn't find anything. But I remember thinking, wow, this is an example of, I could imagine talking to a black guy and having this have happened to him where he's just sitting at a park innocently with his 4 black friends and cops just pull up out of nowhere for no reason and just walk up and say, we're going to pat you down. And they would use that as an example for the rest of their lives as something that would never happen to a white person. Well, guess what? I'm a white person. I'm here to tell you that just happened to me. See, you wouldn't know that happens to white people because you've only been a black person your entire life. Just like I've only ever been a white person, I wouldn't know what happens to black people. The difference is I'm not assuming I do. I'm just telling you my experience. I've had police pull me over and be angry about the fact that I drove a couple extra feet down the road to pull into an actual lot as opposed to the side of the road because I don't like pulling over the side of the road. I'm not going to risk getting hit in the back by an actual drunk driving speeding person at 2 a.m. when I'm coming home from a gig just so I can get a stupid fucking speeding ticket. No, I'll pull into the lot where we're safe and secure. And we're both better off for it. But he was pissed. He comes knocking on the door. Blah, 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 blah. Gun out, everything. I wind down the window. Man, you're lucky you did this or said that because I was going to fucking bust your face in, literally, word for word. And I remember thinking, wow. If I was black, I would think that he said that to me because I was black. I can't imagine he would treat white people that way. Another example. This is all just cop examples, folks. I could do this forever. I'm not saying that I've had a hard life. I'm just providing you with examples of real experiences that I've had that I cannot help but think. If another person had that exact experience with the predisposition to assuming that when something unfair happens to them, it's as a result of their race or their sexual orientation or whatever have you, they would have defaulted to that. See, the one white privilege I definitely have is the privilege of never being able to default to racism as an explanation for something that happens to me in my life that is unjust. See, I am forced to consider a different reason why it may have happened to me because the fact that we exist in a racist society where cops hate white people is not on the table. But in doing so, I have realized that there's actually a myriad of explanations as to why things happen to people, and it doesn't always have to do with race. However, perception is reality. So I'm driving down the road, I'm 21 years old. I haven't paid a few speeding tickets. My license is suspended. I didn't even know my license was suspended. I am pulled over 3 blocks from my house. 3 blocks from my house. I'm living with my parents at the time. I would have only been 19, actually. 19 or 20 years old. Cop runs my tags, sees I have a suspended license, tells me I got to step out of the car. They got to tow the vehicle. They can't release the vehicle to any non-registered owner. I'm on the registration. Guess what? My mom is also a registered owner. She co-signed on the car. So I say, well, actually, no, you don't have to tow it. I can call my mother. She's a registered owner. She can take the vehicle. No, we can't do it. We're just not doing that. We're just not doing that. We're just not doing that. You can do it. You just got through telling me that it can be released to a registered owner. I'm telling you that I'm currently in the process of getting picked up. My mother got there before the tow truck guy got there. And he would not allow my mother, a registered driver of that vehicle, a registered owner of that vehicle, to take it. No, instead it had to be towed 2 blocks in that direction where I had to pay $250 to the tow truck company, who probably gets kickbacks from that. The cop does. Or they have some type of arrangement. Perhaps. I can tell you what, though, that was fucking bullshit. And I can tell you another thing. It wasn't because I was white. It was because that cop was a fucking dick. And sometimes there are people that are fucking dicks. And I acknowledge that. And again, so I know that was a big side tangent. The overall point is perception affects your experience. And if you already walk through life perceiving yourself as a victim, then you will write up anything that happens to you that you don't like, anything you see, you will write off as confirmation of this preconceived notion that you have that you exist in a racist society, or you exist in a transphobic society, or you exist in a this, that, the third. And that will color your experiences. So no, it is not enough for me to just be told by someone their experience. If you want to have an actual conversation about this country and how horrible of a place we are, then we have to have a conversation where we're both on an even playing field. Anecdotal examples don't really count for much. I just gave you 3 of mine and you probably don't give a shit. Well, guess what? That's about the same amount of shit I give about your anecdotal examples. So there you have it. Where do we go from here? I don't know. Why don't we talk about observable, measurable facts? That's it. And no, if I cite some observable, empirical, measurable facts and statistics that disprove your claim, that's not me invalidating your existence. That's not even me invalidating your experience. But you're making a claim based off your personal experience for 330 million people in the country. And I'm sorry, ain't nobody's experience that valid. So, as it pertains to Elon Musk and Don Lemon, I don't know. It's just such a cop-out when people do that. it's just such a cop-out to just put that card down and go, well, you know, I've experienced racism. And, you know, so what are you saying, Don? Are you saying that if you weren't black, you'd be even more of a millionaire and the most popular, no talent commentator on TV? Is that what you're saying? Like, what is the insinuation here? That it's a pure miracle that you have managed to get this level of success because you had to be twice as good as Elon Musk would have had to be. And if you were white, you probably would have invented Tesla 4 times over. But unfortunately, you're black. So all you could achieve in this horrible racist country was just being a millionaire political commentator with endless second chances. Interviewing one of the most popular, prolific people in the world today. Such a shame. Such a shame. You know what? Maybe I will listen to your experience, Don. Because while I sit here recording in a garage with no fucking bathroom to a steadily growing but still incredibly embarrassingly low audience of people every fucking day, I can't help but want to hear more about how hard your life has been. And I'm not saying my life has been hard. I'm just saying, let's leave it out of the fucking equation, dude. You're doing all right. All right? We all got our problems. It's just gay to talk about them. What do you want me to say? Anyway, the rest of the interview goes on. I can't recommend that you watch it enough. It's pretty much like what we just saw today, except a lot less me, which is, you know, good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you feel. Otherwise, I mean, it clearly just kind of like deteriorates and erodes into like, Elon's just done with it. He mentioned several times toward the end, like, look, you only got a couple more minutes. Choose your next questions wisely. Choose your words carefully, Spartan. He almost looks like he's on the verge of, like, you know, not tears, but he's visibly upset, Elon Musk is, at the way he feels like he's being treated. And I think deservedly so. It's just, you know, I feel like there's the overall takeaway that I get from this is that Elon is a good-hearted, honest, mildly autistic in a good way guy who is undoubtedly a genius, a technological genius. Not that great at naming things like his children or his websites that he takes over. So he has his flaws. But he's a good person. He's an incredibly influential and necessary person in our society and the conversation. And Don Lemon is a smug pseudo-intellectual who I believe we will find is unable to thrive in a field of media where he is not put on by a major corporation. See, when Don Lemon's on CNN, he gets to occupy that slot on the platform, and he just by the grace of being on that channel that people already watch, people know his name, people watch him. But when he's forced to compete with people that are actually good at this shit, his show will be irrelevant. It will. Nobody is tuning in to watch this guy say middle school level arguments and try to gain views off of people who are really wasting their time giving him their time. With all that said, I'm sure he's a fine guy. I don't know. It's just, come on, whatever. It's a Tuesday. Give me a break. I haven't eaten in like 36 hours. I said I wasn't going to get hangry. Maybe I'm a little hangry now. Maybe I won't feel this way about Don tomorrow night. Whatever. Folks, happy Twitter Tuesday. March Madness kicks off tonight. I gave you the picks yesterday with the boosts. As far as I can tell, nothing has changed in the boost department, but we have a pick for tonight and tomorrow, of course. Tonight, we have Colorado State -2.5 versus Virginia. That line has not moved an inch that I can see, so it's still -2.5, which means it's not too late to lock that in. That game is at 9:15. p.m. this evening, Tuesday. Best of luck to you. We're looking good on the Rook Look. Happy Tuesday. Till tomorrow, I'm Jimmy Selesky. Peace.